Hello and welcome back to the Pretty Passionate Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ruth. My voice is feeling better, a lot better. I'm not at 100%. I can't sing yet. Thankfully, that's not a professional concern, but I'm so much more comfortable talking to you guys. Oh my gosh. For last week's episode, I felt like I had like glass shards in my throat. Okay. But we're better now. Thank God. We're moving on. And we are today discussing House of the Dragon. What else? Season 3, episode 7, the penultimate episode, which is entitled The Dragon in Winter. Can you believe this season is already over next week? What is time? This episode, gosh, it was so good. It was one of those episodes that's like full of action, but it's setting you up for something. And I mean, in true George R.R. Martin show fashion, the penultimate episode usually gives us like an epic battle or something crazy happening before the finale where other crazy things can happen and usually leave us on a cliffhanger of some kind. So I'm just on pins and needles. I'm not a book reader. By the way, on social media, where else? Some extremely rude commentary from people whose only response to just, sometimes we share the podcast clips on the socials, and I got some strange, rude comments this time around because I've been doing this since I started the podcast. But for some reason this week, people were really in their feelings about reading the book and were commenting kind of vitriolic messages about how the people who don't read the book, essentially implying that we're stupid or that there's some kind of lack of intelligence there, or that because you didn't read this book, I guess, that you just don't know how to read or you don't read books. I'm having fun with it, having fun with not knowing. I have been very careful to avoid spoilers. Any other podcasts I might listen to they usually sequester all the book discussions to the end, and they, kindly let you know when they're about to get into spoilers that only appear in the book. And so I've been really, really successful at avoiding spoilers, and that is helping me enjoy the show. So I don't know, quick PSA. If you are an avid book first, then show person, super great for you. I love it. I have not done that with this particular story, mostly because the style of this book is not a style of book that would normally attract me as a reader, because it's not first person narrative. It's basically like if the Westerosi police were to go around interviewing witnesses about what happened to the Targaryen family, right? It's a maester, actually, I believe, who's writing it all down. And I may be wrong about that. Book people, please calm down if I am. But the point is, it's someone writing the history of what happened to the illustrious Targaryen family and how they essentially end up destroying themselves. And obviously not a spoiler that we see by the time we get to Game of Thrones. Daenerys and her brother are the only Targaryens left. Of course, we know Jon Snow is Egon. It's just a point of rudeness that I just don't get, because it's a reaction podcast to a show. So what does it matter if we read the book? I guess people who may be new to the podcast and don't know me very well or know much about me can make assumptions based on what I look like or, something that they're picking up on, but I'm far from stupid. It just kills me how many incredibly, incredibly poor, unfortunate souls, as Ursula would say, there are out there who just their only occupation in life is to harass people who are just out here, sometimes on the internet, having fun. So PSA for anyone who feels like the book police or feels like we're all doing it wrong, feel free to log off now. For those of you who are enjoying our little discussions, I will happily move on now. So normally I start off with like a bit of a summary and then we kind of get into parts, but I'm going to do kind of what happens this episode, character by character, place by place. What happens at Heron Hall, what happens with those characters at Tumbleton, etc. Okay, so we can start off at Heron Hall. There's a threesome going on. There's some intense mommy lusting because, that really reminded me of Damon's visit to Heron Hall, where he was tripping balls on whatever it was that Alice Rivers was giving him or whatever magic exists in the halls of this place. We still don't know exactly what's causing this, but what we see is that Eamon, and we don't know this is a dream at the time, the viewer can't tell. We see Eamon having an interaction with Alicent. She's talking to him and saying things reminiscent of what Damon's mother said to him when he was in his trance at Heron Hall, about how, like, you're my favorite, and like, oh, I wish you had been born first, like, and you're all I have left. Is the stuff Alicent is saying to him, and initiates a kiss with him, and they end up making love. And before the act can be completed, Eamon somehow wakes up from the dream because Alice, who is actually there physically in real life having sex with him, makes the mistake, I guess, of saying, I'm going to give you some babies. And that snaps Eamon out of it. Of course, until that moment, we think this is actually happening. And I actually did scream, no, Alicent, at the television. Okay. And then after this dream, after he awakens from this dream, Alicent actually does in real life arrive at Heron Hall. She arrives to carry out her mission from Rhaenyra to take Eamon out. And she's wearing the exact same clothes that he had on in his dream. So was the dream prophetic? That's why I'm wondering, what is the source of these dreams? Because it's strange that she was dressed the exact same way. And when she greets him, she says the same things to him in real life that she said in the dream. So he's majorly creeped out at this point. And then they get to go and have a nice dinner where Alicent meets his new woman. And that goes as well as you would expect it to go, because she was not expecting to come here and find him booed up with some woman who's talking about that they are going to purify the dragon bloodline and all these plans they have, for the future. Any mother would be put off by this, by the way. And so during this dinner, Alice gets a bad vibe from Alicent. She sends Eamon to go and chop some wood. Out there, she warns him that there's a dark cloud over his mom, and he is in love with his mother, which is so gross to admit. But he's in love with his mother, and he doesn't listen to her. He just takes it as like, women, clearly. And he doesn't listen to Alice, and he trusts his mom. So it's crazy how the writers do this, because there's in that moment, there's a hint of a second where I actually felt bad for him. Freaking Eamon. I felt bad for him because I was like, he really just wants his mommy's love. Ugh, these writers, they get you. So anyway, prior to the dinner, the companion who entered Heron Hall with Alicent, he's introduced to Eamon, and no sooner than they shake hands to meet than Eamon shoves a knife in this guy's throat and kills him because he's like, well, I can't trust him with all of the secrets that are here. I guess he's talking about the dragon eggs. I don't know. But either way, in Eamon's mind, he's like, mommy's here. I got my woman. I got my dragon eggs. This is all I need. We have nothing else. We have each other, So now Alicent sneaks off in search of a dagger from the dead body, discovers some berries on a tree, otherwise known as nightshade. Some of you may recall Helena making reference to Eamon and a poison plant in her dreams when she used to just relay her dreams as just weird little poem things. Statistically, poison is a weapon that women use when we want to kill someone, I guess. Oh, that's interesting. So she serves him a cup of wine before bed to help him get off to bed, and he drinks it because he trusts his mommy. And again, for some reason, I felt bad for him. Next, we see him stumbling into Alice Rivers' workshop. Clearly, he's been poisoned. He collapses on the floor. Alice doesn't seem super worried about this, more annoyed, like, you idiot, actually is what she says, I think. And then Alicent scurries off into the night. She leaves the castle. And I'm thinking to myself, where is this lady going? Where is this lady going on the King's Road by herself at night? Not even sure if she has a weapon, but okay. I mean, literally, if Alicent has a weapon, what good is she if she by herself were to encounter brigands? I don't know. Maybe there's more of Rhaenyra's men waiting for her, but that would be a weird use of forces when you are down an entire police force at King's Landing. So we'll see what happens with Alicent. Helena, meanwhile, the dreamer, is having dreams. This time we get her POV on the dreams. So it's not just where she's telling us about the dreams or sewing tapestries about the dreams. We jump in with her. There's a gray mare. There's a sunny farm with chickens and babies, little blonde babies, Jahara, and we can only assume the son that she probably thinks she's carrying. But their dream is interrupted by some snowflakes initially, just flakes. And then that gusty, snowy, icy blast of wind that we're familiar with up north that usually, at least in Game of Thrones land, would accompany the Night King in his movements. So this gust of wind is coming at Helena and interrupting her happily ever after in some way. And so I guess the point of that is that winter is coming. I can't do the accent. Winter is coming. So I guess that's her additional taste of the prophecy that she's getting as a dreamer. And we also get a vision of her giving birth to a baby boy. That baby boy is promptly taken away from her, presumably Rhaenyra taking the baby as she fears. And finally, the most interesting thing about her dreams is that we finally get to see Dreamfire. Ooh, what a pretty dragon. You know, purple being my favorite color. That blue and purple and that iridescence all over Dreamfire. I thought Sunfire was the most beautiful dragon in all of the land, but I don't know. I'm leaning Dreamfire. Anyway, we get to see her purple and blue coloring and horns. Very intimidating looking dragon. I'm not going to lie. Helena is mounted on her with her riding leathers. Miss Helena, who's like, I never want to burn anyone. I'll never ride a dragon. There's a crowd of people approaching. It looks like she's in the dragon pit, and she gives a very fierce Dracarys on the back of this dragon. And I was impressed. I'm not going to lie. I didn't see it in her, but I think the point of this dream, maybe besides being prophetic about what will happen in the future that will necessitate her actually putting all of her misgivings about dragons and how they change you aside and getting on back of Dreamfire and wreck and shop, maybe just that. But also, I think it denotes something in the blood, something in the Targaryen bloodline that no matter how much she tries to eschew the dragon riding and deny it and not really consider using Dreamfire in the war, especially because she doesn't want to burn people. She's very hesitant about the use of dragons. It's somewhere in there, deep down inside, that dragon blood. And it looks like what her dream was showing us is that if Helena needs to use her dragon power, she will. Okay, we move on to another useless Queen's Council. These scenes just get more and more ridiculous. Everybody just sitting around a table and complaining. This time, Torrhen Manderly's complaining that the people of the city are vandalizing his house because they believe that he has run off with all of the coin for the kingdom because of what Rhaenyra told them last week, which was basically, we don't have any money, and Torrhen Manderly is the maester of coin. So he's like, it feels like I was given this title to be the fall guy, which is hilarious because yes, duh. Sabbath of Frey, she's still going to talk about, but Heron Hall. And basically, Rhaenyra, out of probably exhaustion and also maybe precaution, is like, hey, you know what? Go ahead and claim Heron Hall. Go back to the twins, march your people down there and claim it as your own. And that way, in her head, if this plan fails with Aemon, at least there's technically an army, a host marching in that direction already. And if the plan does work, at least I guess Heron Hall is occupied by an ally. I think that's thinking. Okay. So during this meeting, we learn that Daemon is absent again. Obviously, this is upsetting to Rhaenyra. And we find out shortly thereafter that it is because he is in the Vale. He arrives at the Vale on Caraxes and meets with Jane Eyre because there's been another Rhaena spotting. They are in agreement that this is going to blow their cover. So he's like, tell me where she is. He's hunting for Rhaena now to try and find her because obviously he can't be found to have been lying to Rhaenyra when he handed her the head of the person who killed Jace, right? Sheep Stealer's rider. So that's his interest in this, obviously. And also he is still being protective over Rhaena and not wanting her to, let's say, run into Moondancer, run into Sea Smoke. And so what he fears happens because while he's out trying to clean up Rhaena's mess, or his own mess, really, Baela and Adam, they are on patrol and they have an interesting conversation, by the way. Very cute. Remember what I said last week about Adam and Baela and chemistry? Yeah, I was right. At least on Adam's end, that he's into Baela because they're having a whole conversation about how he hopes that maybe she can talk to her dad, who might be able to put a good word in for him with Rhaenyra so that he and his brother can actually get their Velaryon titles. And she's like, oh, what do you need a title for? Which, by the way, I was like, very rich coming from a Targaryen princess. What would you know about struggling for some legitimacy in this world, being a Targaryen princess with full-blown white hair and a dragon behind you, you know? Like, lady, you are the picture of privilege. Anywho, so he goes, well, one day, what if me and my brother meet some ladies of the realm that come from some good family that we would want to marry? And he's kind of looking at her with this very adorable puppy dog expression, and she's totally misreads it. God bless Baela. And she goes, oh, did your brother tell you? Did your brother tell you about us? Is the unspoken part. Adam's face registers understanding and disappointment simultaneously in a way that is a credit to the actor. But then that conversation is interrupted because Sheep Stealer spotted flying in a distance overhead, and they both are like, what the actual? So they both jump on Dragonback, try to give chase. They don't catch him. Head straight back to King's Landing to report to Rhaenyra that they've seen Sheep Stealer with a rider, which is stunning news to everybody who believes that Sheep Stealer's rider's head was given to Rhaenyra. So back in the Vale, Rhaenyra on Sheepstealer, cornered by her father on Cyrax. And the dragons are really they make me so nervous in this scene because they are not backing down from each other. They're both like, hey, you, what's up? Yeah, I remember you from the cave. You want to step? It's very contentious between the dragons. Now, Rhaenyra is not necessarily welcoming her dad's arrival, but she doesn't want him killed, and vice versa for Daemon. But the dragons are always making their own decisions. We really need to remember that. They make their own decisions. They have strong empathy with their riders. So the anxiety that Rhaenyra is feeling, Sheepstealer is picking up on that. Whatever Daemon is feeling right now, probably fear, a lot of emotion, right? He's torn, he's scared for her. They're feeling it all. And ultimately they are not necessarily going to do exactly what their rider tells them to do. They're going to do what they want to do. We saw this with Vhagar killing Lucerys on Arax. She just decided to have an Arax snack. And in that scene, Eamon repeatedly screamed, no, no, no. But it happened anyway. So they're in the middle of a conversation. The dragons are getting hyped. And all of a sudden, we see 2 more dragons approaching from the sky. And who would it be but Rhaenyra and Adam arriving on Cyrax and Sea Smoke? Okay. As you can imagine, it gets heavy. We've got 3 dragons now looking at Sheepstealer, who is a feral wild dragon. And as we know from the Battle of the Gullet, Sheepstealer's reaction to stress and feeling threatened is to strike. So a fierce dragon battle ensues. We barely have time for the characters to even interact, for Rhaenyra to dismount, gather the new information before her that, whoa. So Sheepstealer's rider has been Rhaenyra this whole time? So you lied to me when you brought me that skull? So she killed Jace? That's a lot for Rhaenyra to be processing in real time, but they don't have time for that because they got to get out of the way. These dragons are getting amped and they are going at each other. And Cyrax, who, by the way, I'm like, Cyrax? Is Cyrax battle experience? I'm pretty sure the answer is no. Someone can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but Cyrax goes for Sheepstealer. Sheepstealer is the bigger, older dragon here. And in dragon lore, when they're bigger and they're older, they have stronger skin, right? So you can't hurt them as easily. And also their fire burns hotter. So frighteningly, Cyrax goes for Sheepstealer, burns him, gets a good burn on Sheepstealer now, and is about to do some damage, but trying those bites that Cyrax is trying to deliver are just not as effective. And Sheepstealer gets Cyrax with one of those neck grips, like what Vhagar got Meleys with. And my heart is pounding right now. And I honestly stopped caring about the people in the scene. I was just on pins and needles about these dragons because look, all of these dragons are Team Black, right? So nothing good could possibly happen here as far as the story is concerned for those of us who are solidly Team Black, like me. Okay, so the fight intensifies. Sea Smoke joins in, and then Caraxes is coming in. So now it's almost 3 against 1, but then Rhaenyra realizes we need to get out of here. They manage to get Cyrax away, and then she grabs Rhaenyra, puts her on Cyrax's back, and is like, peace out. So now it's 2 against 1. It's Sea Smoke and Caraxes versus Sheepstealer, and they are getting the better of him. Now, what's crazy is that Sheepstealer is not dead. Sheepstealer fought off 3 dragons, more or less, is what we can gather from this information. And so some confusing stuff happens. Daemon then tells Adam, go escort the queen back. I guess? I don't know why she needed an escort. She's riding a dragon. The dragon is hurt, but he's not completely disabled, but whatever, she's the queen. So Adam leaves, but I'm like, why would you not just finish Sheepstealer off? If that's the intention, finish him off and then send him, right? So then it's Caraxes versus a very injured Sheepstealer. And somehow Sheepstealer still manages to get away. And that's confusing to me. Caraxes does more damage for sure, but Sheepstealer still manages to limp away, tries to fly, fails to do so, and limps off into the distance. And Daemon just does nothing about that. It's very strange. Why did you take the job on if you were going to not do it? I don't know. Maybe we'll get an explanation for that. Here's what's really important about this scene for me and why I'm bothered. Dragon math. Okay, so like I mentioned, all of the dragons who are involved in this fight, the 3 that are on the 1, are Team Black decisively, right? And then you have Sheepstealer with Rhaenyra, who, okay, Sheepstealer's a wild dragon. We can't really count on him. But with Rhaenyra as his rider, we can be completely assured that even if he doesn't join the fight, he won't end up on Team Green. Cool. Now you have removed Rhaenyra, who he was loyal to. You've removed Rhaenyra from the situation and unleashed Sheepstealer back into the wild to do what exactly? Like, I don't know exactly how it could happen, but I was just like, what is the benefit of leaving him alive for potentially Team Green to somehow recruit to their cause? I don't know. It was just a wild imaginary thing. Like, if Sheepstealer's holding a grudge, he's going to go and find Ormond and be like, listen, I don't have a rider, but I'm ready to burn some stuff up. The more important aspect of this, besides Sheepstealer being decisively taken off the board as a potential benefit to Team Black, because even Rhaenyra said it, right? Like, my life is forfeit. I don't have anything to live for. I'm hunting Vhagar. So that's what Rhaenyra's been doing. I suggested this as a possible solution to her troubles weeks ago, that like after the Battle of the Gullet, I was like, well, the only way she's going to redeem herself is if she goes after Vhagar and eliminates Vhagar. And I was just kind of thinking, obviously, Sheepstealer is no Vhagar, but Sheepstealer is older than the 3 dragons that were present. We know that much. And so with that age comes strength. Sheepstealer would probably be, besides Vermithor, their best match for Vhagar. And more importantly, Sheepstealer is carrying a rider who is willing to die to try to kill Vhagar. So I looked at that as a possible asset in the back of my head, and now that asset is off the board. The other thing is, now Cyrax is gravely injured. Obviously not to death. He's a good boy. He was able to fly back to King's Landing, and he was received in the dragon pit. And I really didn't like that Rhaenyra dismounted him and just went on about her business, talking about how she doesn't want to see Rhaenyra, put her in a room somewhere. And I'm just like, poor Cyrax, he just needs a hug. Doesn't he just need somebody to tell him he did a good job? He was a good boy. I know they're not pets, but it's so hard when they treat them like that. I just don't like it. I don't know why. I love the dragons. So Cyrax is badly injured and probably off the board. I don't know how quickly dragons heal. I mean, they take a long time, as we know, to recover from serious injury. So Team Black in the healthy category now only has Seasmoke, Moondancer, and Cyrax. Cyrax took a bite, but is not super injured. And as well as Vermithor for now. That's who they have. Dreamfire is not really an asset for them because Helena has declared time and again she's not going to use it in war to support anyone. And until the end of the episode, they had technically in their possession 7, with Sheepstealer, like I said, being a potential asset that would land on Team Black if put into play at all. Taking Sheepstealer off the board, okay, let's subtract Dreamfire and be realistic because Helena is not really about that life. Did I miscount? But the point is, now, okay, we are also going to lose Silverwing. So now that leaves Seasmoke, Moondancer, and Cyrax and Vermithor for now. Hugh was another person that I talked about last episode, is not having his needs met by his queen. What is holding on to Hugh's loyalty? We need to be looking at this. So now Team Black is down to 4 dragons, and now Team Green has Targaryen, Vhagar. By the end of the episode, also has Silverwing. Now, you're still some of you may be thinking 3 versus 4. Well, Team Black is still up. Not really, because Vhagar counts as like at least 2 dragons if you really want to be conservative. It would take at least 2 very, very skilled dragons to take Vhagar down, and even then it wouldn't be a guarantee. Even then one of them or both of them get very badly injured doing so. It's just terrible, terrible stuff, because I'm just like, you guys, all that's happening is the dragons are getting killed, and I care only about the dragons. Okay. Stresses me out. Moving on. Baela and Rhaenyra do have a touching reunion at King's Landing shortly after Rhaenyra has clearly had a bath. Her hair is looking much better. The curl pattern is returning. Maybe we got a little product in there, a little oil from the maesters. I don't know. She's looking much better. And Baela just takes her back with open arms. It's like, we'll start over. You don't have to worry about that. What's interesting about that is I wonder how much Rhaenyra really wants to start over, especially San's dragon. Like, she finally had her dragon, So it's like, sucks for Rhaenyra because it feels like she can never have it all. She got her dragon, she lost her family. Now, technically, she has her family back, lost her dragon. I don't know with how it's going to work out for Rhaenyra, but there's hope for her. And then after this whole dragon debacle, Rhaenyra is just spinning. She's learning that Daemon lied to her. She feels like she can't trust anyone, literally anyone. He was one of the last humans on Earth she felt like she could trust, and he betrayed her, or she feels some sense of betrayal. And even she's trying to have a measured response to this because Mysare's trying to hype her up like, oh, I told you Daemon would betray you, which I'm like, shut up, lady. And Rhaenyra's rather surprisingly measured response to that is, but was it a betrayal? Because what he actually did was he did not betray me. He just refused to betray his daughter. Which daughter? Like, how? She's recognizing that Daemon was in an extremely tough spot and did something dumb, but it wasn't like he betrayed her to try and like take the Iron Throne from her. So I like that she is giving nuance to the situation, but I do hate that her response of being so spun out and desperate for someone to tell her that it's all going to work out in the end makes her fall further into Myssaria's web. I don't trust Mysaria. In particular, I don't trust Mysaria fresh off that scene with Madame Sylvie, where Madame Sylvie reminds her that you're still a whore. That's how these people see you. And I feel like she just turns around from that and uses her skills from the brothels to flatter Rhaenyra and kind of use sex to solidify her position at Rhaenyra's side. By the way, I didn't know that they had not actually had sex before, but they made such a big deal out of this scene, the way that they just went down. It felt like, okay, I guess this is the first time. And what we had seen before was just a kiss. Either way, I don't think it's a good idea that Rhaenyra is mixing business this much with pleasure. Her desperation for a reassurance from the gods, she needs to know that they chose her and that she has a part to play in the prophecy. And I don't know, I think it just mentally puts her in such a useless position. And Myssaria's focus being the people, I'm for the people, and all of her hypocrisy. I don't know. And speaking of the gods, I feel like by the end of the episode, do we have a sign from the gods about who they think should be seating the Iron Throne? Because what happens for Egon, if I was Rhaenyra and I knew about that and I had just cut my hand on the Iron Throne and now learned about Aegon's actual miraculous survival and Sunfire's miraculous return from the dead, I would be assured that, okay, no, the gods are not in my favor. The Seven have completely turned their backs on me. What up with them Valyrian gods? Because the Seven are not in her favor, it seems. Okay, over in Tumbleton, we learn that Lord Corlys, he's very much alive. But he loses a finger, and that finger is delivered to Alan of Hull in gruesome fashion, I guess, as Ormond's way of letting them know he has him hostage. Ormond is tickled pink, and Darren and Gwaine observe this. They're nervous about it because he's all celebratory as if he's already won something. And we know from the past that Ormond always has another card up his sleeve. We later learn that the reason Ormond is feeling so joyful is, okay, yes, he's got Lord Corlys. So he didn't believe Rhaenyra had the stones to burn Tumbleton before, let alone now that she knows her Lord Hand is here, right? Someone who is very important to her cause. So he feels reassured by that. And then we learn that he's been secretly working overtime to convert Ulf over to Team Darren for King, which is exactly what I said would happen last week, when Daemon chose to slap Ulf down in public for trying to get a beer. Womp, womp, womp. Went exactly as badly as I thought it would, just a little faster than I thought it would. That little bird carried that information right on back to Ormond, and he played him. He played him like a fiddle, and he played to Ulf's weaknesses, which is just beer. And then he appealed to the things that appeal to any human being, which is just a modicum of respect and being treated like a person sometimes. You know, that would have went a long way. And it's like so ridiculous that they end up losing Silverwing because they just couldn't treat their very critically important dragon rider with a little respect, meet him where he is, and take care of just one small aspect of his needs. Wouldn't have cost them anything. Man, to get this guy a couple of women from the brothels and a freaking keg, I don't know, and some of his buddies to come over and here's your room, you can stay here, it's fine. Like, he's so critically important to your mission and you fumble that hard. It's bad that this has happened is bad for Rhaenyra, because Ulf, who, I don't know, he was just kind of like harmless before, or maybe there was something I didn't like and trust about him. My sixth sense was just always just like, watch this guy. He's very self-serving. He's a little bit arrogant, a little unyielding to the customs and courtesies of the place and the people he's talking to. The look on his face when he said, we're going to burn them all, you know? I was like, whoa. It's giving, I am now in a position to get my little taste of revenge against these people who have made me feel like crap. And in some way, does Ulf represent all of the small folk? Probably. that if they had their chance to swipe at a Targaryen would. Yeah. So they're in trouble. And in exchange for his new alliance with Ulf, Ormond promises him Driftmark. He goes, yeah, I know we talked about that castle thing and you promised me Honey Hole. And he's like, Honey Hole, that dump. No, no, no. You are going to be the Lord of Driftmark. So, couple of things. He's obviously going to dispatch with Lord Corlys when he no longer needs him. Makes sense. Why would you let him live? He's never going to be team King Darren. And then 2, it's funny because Honey Hole is the seat of House Beesbury, and he just like basically calls it like a dump, a shack. What do you want that for? We saw the Beesburys in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. That's why they're so fresh on my mind. Anyway, moving on. And so finally, we get to the most shocking and, in my opinion, pivotal thing that happens in this episode, which is we catch up with our reluctant trio, Tywin Lannister, Larys Strong, and King Egon. And they are headed to catch a ship to Essos. They made the decision last week, and now they're on their way, except on the way, they keep running into small folk, running away from something with possessions in hand. They finally ask, like, what's going on? Turns out there's an army headed their way. Okay. House Mutant has mobilized an army and sent them over to Rook's Rest because they heard that Tywin Lannister has shown up there. Yeah, Tywin, I guess, didn't actually conceal his identity, so now they're after him. House Mutant is sworn to Rhaenyra and on the move. Everybody's trying to get out of the way. The road is completely blocked. So they argue back and forth about what to do, finally decide that they just need to head back to Rook's Rest because at least it's fortified and maybe they'll be safe within its walls. While they're headed there, Aegon decides, you know what? I'm done running and I'm going to make my final stand here. I'm not going to die hiding in some hovel, and I'm not going to let people think that I died of illness or running away. He was like, I'm going to basically die sword in hand, again, looking for that valor, that glory, that songs will be sung about how I died. Okay. Tywin Lannister, to my surprise, decides to stick beside him. And I guess, at the end of the day, it's a move that would benefit him. They are looking for him. They know he's alive. He could have tried to escape to Essos, but could he really leave King Egon alone? Because what if he lives and actually makes it and you abandon him? That won't be great for House Lannister. So he stays. Larys, on the other hand, and I guess I'm reluctant to attribute any of that to Tywin Lannister is so loyal and he's so great because I just don't think he's that great, but maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm biased. Larys, on the other hand, is like, so about that, I'm a cripple, so I'm going to Essos. I will make sure that they are singing the songs, that the histories know that you were a great king who went down sword in hand. Have a nice life if you will let me. Now, this was a critical moment because I was like, oh, Egon could turn around and be like, no, you are going to stay here with me because you brought me here and this is what we're doing now. I've made the decision. I've spoken. But Egon being on this journey, he kind of bids him farewell unofficially. I was a little saddened by them separating because I don't feel like Larys wanted to leave him. I think he wants to survive, no question. I don't think Larys is under any false impressions about what he could do here on the field of battle. He's like, I'm a cripple. I need to go if we're going to try to face off this army because I would obviously be of no use to you. And I think he wants to live, so that's his inclination. But I know he also probably wants Egon to want to live, and he's saddened, I think, to leave him and head out. So that was very, very interesting. Okay. So, we'll probably, hopefully, I hope, see Larys again. These two be reunited somehow, maybe. So they're waiting for the army to run into them, Tywin and Egon. And we see the army approaching under torchlight, and Egon dismounts his steed and he goes into a monologue. I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit inspired. Talking about how, here I am, unafraid. I am King Aegon. I'm revealing myself. You guys are supporting the pretender queen or whatever he was calling her and questioning my legitimacy. I was the one who was crowned in the Sept of Baelor, and I'm the one who the seven have chosen. If you kill me, you strike me down, you will be haunted by the warrior and all this. And it's a very brazen and inspired speech. It's very loud. It's very intimidating. And he's seemingly very prepared to die and to go out swinging. And then the army starts to recoil and look scared. And I'm like, y'all are that scared of the warrior? y'all are that scared of the seven? Maybe House Mutin is extremely devout and their people are just like, whoa, he's talking about the gods? No, I was totally wrong. They see in the distance, in the darkness, something approaching that is moving trees aside like blades of grass. And it is none other than Sunfire. Egon turns around. At first I was like, Vhagar? For a second. For a split second, when I realized there was something that big approaching, I was like, bro, has Vhagar rolled up to protect Aegon? Which would have been weird because last time you saw him, he did Dracarys him. But anyway, I had a moment where I thought it was Vhagar and it was Sunfire. And this shouldn't make me happy, but I'm not going to lie, it did. Because y'all know I love these dragons. I think I just can't get out of my mind that they are like pets. I think that's what it is. It's like I see them as like pets, like my little Valentino, my little schmuppy puppy. So yeah. Anyway, Sunfire, he comes out of the woods and Egon is like high at this point. He's like, it's happened. Immediate Dracarys. He loses not a minute and he's like, get him. And Sunfire is like, Dracarys everywhere. Burns the entire mutant army to a crisp. It did occur to me that maybe some of the folks in the back, in the back, maybe they got away, but the Dracarys thing went on for a second, so I'm not sure if anyone got away. Tywin Lannister, he's obviously shocked, but I'm sure relieved to not have had to die. And it honestly is just a testament to the fabulous writing of this show that for like a split second, I caught myself almost cheering for Egon, that horrific person. You guys are really good at what you do. Because I was like, Sunfire! And just seeing that she was alive and then, okay, they were back together. And then I was like, okay, I guess you have to Dracarys all those people. Okay, you couldn't have just intimidated them with the dragon standing there next to you. Because I feel like if I'm the leader of the mutant army, I would personally be like, oh, I didn't know it was that kind of party. You've got a dragon. Gotta go. But, he doesn't give them time to make that decision. And I was okay with his decision making until he started to cackle like the Joker at the end. And then they show them side by side, and that part of Sunfire's face that was on the ground last time we saw her, you see is disfigured. And it's interesting, at least artistically, because the right side of Sunfire's face is all burned off and the left side of Aegon's face is all burned off. So like together they have one face, Basically they complete one another. I'm sure it means nothing, but I noticed stuff like this, so I'm sharing it. So that's all of what happened during the episode, and what an episode of television it was. We're going to briefly cover our main character energy of the week because we were just talking about him. Someone who has gone from an annoying little man who's all grown up and now believes in himself. King Egon Targaryen, King of the Andals, the Rhaenyra, and the First Men, and Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. He styled himself with that full title before he charged at the mutants. I have never ever been an Egon fan, but doggone it, those writers. And I just really like shows and characters that are not black and white, that are not all villain or all pure good, but have an interesting story, an arc, something to reveal about the complexity of humanity in their story. And I feel like that's what we're seeing with Egon. That split second that you might have felt, that I definitely felt, where we were cheering for this incredibly bad man, is like great writing. Egon, though, as far as being that main character, he's done feeling sorry for himself. He was having that one-man pity party for most of the season. His genitals, after all, are gone. And he was afraid. He was injured and in a vulnerable position, skulking off to Essos with his friend Larys. Over the course of the season, we've seen Egon do quite a bit of cowering or reluctant cowering, where he realizes he's cooked, so he can't identify himself. So he has to kiss the poop-covered boot of, what's his name, Janos. Scared Egon is gone. He makes a solid decision to face the mutant army, and a thoughtful decision, I might add, not to force Larys to join him. And old Egon, I wonder, I feel like old Egon would have expected 100% fealty from every single person around him. And new Egon he's like, okay, have a nice life, Larys. I'm going to face this danger because I'm not going out like a simp. And it's just him and Tywin, no dragon. I mean, he's living in a world where Sunfire is long dead and he doesn't even have armor. I mean, to face off with an army when you have a dragon behind you is one thing, but to do it by yourself with one loyal guy. I'm saying this is a different Egon. This is an Egon chapter 2. He's walking, facing certain death, declaring himself the rightful ruler of Westeros, and declaring damnation for them for going against him. I mean, honestly, in that second, it was giving aura. I'm not saying he's a good guy. He's not a good guy. And, this is just me pointing out that in that moment, an old skin basically was shed, as if that burning were a bit of a baptism. And the old little pest brat that was once him, after everything he's been through with the burning and the recovery and Laris and on the road and all these people he's dealt with and how he's survived so much, literally. Yeah, he's a different person now. I know he's a terrible king, but this moment, this glorious, triumphant moment, for that split second I was cheering for him, there was also a split second where I was like, man, is he going to get back to the Iron Throne? We don't know. But it was a masterful character redemption arc, and I won't take that away from the writers. And he may have, in that moment, with all the peril he was facing, proven himself worthy of his title. It's a good question, right? I mean, again, horrible man. Horrible things he's done, but he's been through a journey. He has literally been through a baptism by fire, and he has shed literally his old skin because he had like 3rd-degree burns all over his entire body. And he comes out of it slightly more benevolent, letting Laris go, bolder, believing in his mission, believing in his coronation. Remember how scared he was at his first coronation? He didn't think that he was the right choice. He didn't fully believe that Viserys had even chosen him. Remember? It was his mom, daggone Alicent, pushing this on him with the dagger and her talking and her cajoling. And even with that, he was not confident at his coronation. It wasn't until the crown was on his head and the crowd was cheering that he was kind of like, oh, I am the king. Yay. Like this is him stepping into a completely new identity. This is him disfigured and all saying, now you see me. Now you see who I am. And again, that side-by-side shot of him and his disfigured dragon, good stuff. Perfect pair. Main character energy. Egon Targaryen the second. He's the second, right? Yeah, he's the second. So, final diagnosis time, guys. Rhaenyra girl, I think it's over for you. Yeah. In this penultimate episode, we get to see more of Rhaenyra's solving absolutely no one's problems, and yet somehow still scraping at and being overly concerned with her legitimacy. Ma'am, the legitimacy comes from ruling well. She wants validation from Helena. She wants it from Daemon. He's usually the one who can get through to reassuring her that the prophecy involves her, but he's not around. So she sinks so low as to seek reassurance from Mysaria, someone who obviously stands to gain a lot with you in power. Why do you believe she's going to give you an honest opinion about whether or not you're the one the gods have ordained to win this struggle? I don't know. Mysaria is very clearly, obviously, from our end, someone who should not be fully trusted. She's saying what Rhaenyra wants to hear. Is that her real opinion? Like, does Mysaria really believe that Rhaenyra is the one? I have questions. And also, is now the time to be getting it on, Rhaenyra? The realm is being held together by tape and glue. And now is when you choose to consummate whatever this relationship is with Mysaria. Like, are you okay, girl? Are you okay? I know some people say it's a stress reliever that I have to, blow off some steam. Great way to reduce stress. Be that as it may. Are you unwell? Do you not see the wolves at your door? There's work to be done. There's work to be done. If I were Rhaenyra, granted I am a Capricorn, I would be up all night strategizing with every single person who could offer strategy. Me and Alan would get no sleep because that guy, he's got some decent ideas. I would be up with this dude every night just trying to figure it out. Your master of whisperers is completely out of touch. Madame Sylvie herself told her, girl, your dress that you're wearing is worth a whole year's worth of my wages. If Mysaria was this woman of the people, this representative of the people that she claims to be, why wouldn't she sell that dress to get the people food and what they need? Why dress in fine silks when the people you care so much are suffering? So I feel like Mysaria's lost the plot, and she now potentially stands as the person who will be closest to counsel Rhaenyra. She wants to be like that in between. She stood at the foot of the Iron Throne and kind of named herself a de facto hand. I guess Corlys isn't here, so she feels like Rhaenyra needs someone to intercede between the people and her, and kind of named herself that kind of emissary role. And I'm like, no, ma'am, that's not your job. But you seem to be grasping at power, and that makes me not trust you. Which means, and the other thing I don't like about Mysaria getting closer to Rhaenyra is that Mysaria is very anti-burning people. Okay. So that means that my plans for Rhaenyra to burn Tumbleton as a last ditch effort to regain control of the situation, probably not going to happen, at least not next episode. Right. And Rhaenyra will, my prediction, squander her very last chance to tip the scales back in her favor. And the dragon math has just now added to the severity of her problem. Now it's a fight. Before, it would have been, okay, a sad situation, for the people of Tumbleton. Now it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a dragon fight. And we know that those don't go well for anybody. So can't wait till next week. Literally cannot wait. Can't believe it's already here. I mean, what are we going to talk about after this show is over? I've given some thought. Obviously, there's a lot of things coming to Prestige Television. We have Lanterns coming to HBO, which is starring Aaron Pierre. That's Mufasa. And I think I would watch that show. I'm not the biggest DC comic fan. That's my husband. He's the DC guy in the house, and I join along with him for the ride. Obviously, Batman and Superman and the Justice League are probably my biggest interest in the DC comic world. But Lanterns, I am going to give it a solid try. And also 2026, the Gilded Age is supposed to return. I believe that is going to be in the fall, although there's no official date yet. And Dune Prophecy is getting a season 2. Dune Prophecy now. I read Dune. Dune Prophecy, the first season was shaky for me. My husband and I, we enjoyed it because we really just loved the story and, of course, the movies. I'm talking about the Denis Villeneuve movies. Those movies are masterpieces. And so, of course, that drove us to be very interested in Dune Prophecy season 1. And it was good. There's such solid acting. I mean, you just can't deny the talent of the people starring in this show. But there were some aspects of it that were a little shaky, some questions left unanswered that I thought should have been answered. I'm going to give season 2 a whirl and see what happens. I'm not sure if I'll be covering it on the pod, but of course, for the Gilded Age, I may even get a special Gilded Age hat. I feel like at this point, I'm so committed to the Gilded Age that I should probably have a special Gilded Age podcasting hat with like some fancy feathers, or like a fascinator. Yeah, maybe I'll wear a fascinator. Were those in style in the 20s? I have to look it up. I'll get a period appropriate hat, hair covering, because that would be fun, right? But yeah, Gilded Age is coming back. I will definitely be covering that. And I think we're going to be leaning into the reality arm of entertainment for now, as we expect other things to return, as we wait for the rest of the soon to come fall lineup from regular and Prestige Television. If you guys have any suggestions on things that I would really enjoy that you think I should watch and you'd like to cover, do drop a comment. Okay, I took your suggestions. I took someone's suggestion to give Industry a try. I have not completed the first season. I know it's in its 4th season. I thought I could catch up. I don't love it. So if you were going to suggest Industry, I'm just going to let you know Industry is not my thing. I may give it a shot later on, but I don't love it so far. That said, I'm open to suggestions. Let me know. Drop a comment. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure. As always, please like, subscribe, follow the podcast wherever you listen. And if you're streaming on YouTube, please like the videos, subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get alerts whenever a new episode is posted. And most importantly, share the podcast with a friend who you think would be interested in our discussions. Stay pretty, stay passionate. Bye.